Yo, 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 what up, what up? I'm Zach Carter, he's Jason Linkins, and you are watching HuffPost Live. Today we're going to talk about sloth, which is a sin that can apparently get you both into hell and also Congress. That's right, it's snowing in Washington today, and for most of the federal government, that means they don't have to come to work. But you wouldn't know it from Congress because guess what? They weren't going to come in anyway. And turns out they're only working how many days this year, Jason?
119 days.
And how many days did they work last year?
They worked 135 days.
And how many days are you going to work this year?
Guess at least 5 or 6. Arthur Delaney reached out to a number of the people who signed this letter and made this big stink and found out that most of the people having made the stink were just going to go piss off back home anyway. Now, of course, they can argue, well, we can take up the cause back home. We can meet with constituents who are dealing with these problems back home and maybe be better informed. But it's worth pointing out that back in 2008, when the GOP wanted to make a big stink about domestic oil drilling, and they were in the middle of sort of a congressional impasse at the time, they asked for Congress to stay in session. Democrats said no. Democrats went home. Republicans stayed and made a big stink to do about it. And the thing about that is that you
Whoever
get a
smelt it dealt it.
Right, yeah, exactly. You get a captive audience as far as your Beltway press goes. They've got no one to talk to. So, they were able to push this issue out into the open. And eventually, when they actually did come back and decide this issue, they earned a lot of concessions from Democrats. It was generally seen as a success, the fact that they stayed back in D.C. and raised a holy snit fit about this. That option was open to Democrats, too. And certainly, I think there's maybe more merit of now pushing this issue into the national press versus back at home. Back at home, local newspapers, they've been covering unemployment. They've been talking about this issue. And what you don't see is a sort of like concomitant amount of coverage in Beltway media.
Republicans also feel pressure on this issue of unemployment stuff. At a broad ideological level, they can say, well, we hate government spending and we don't want to be bailing people out, and if you don't provide the benefits, then they're never going to go to work because they're all lazy bums anyway. Great sort of line of reasoning for people who only go to work 119 days a week.
Right.
People who don't have jobs are all lazy. But that's basically the philosophical approach.
Right.
But when it actually comes down, when the rubber hits the road in the district, people don't want to see their members of Congress cutting off money to their communities. And so you have seen a lot of Republicans take a lot of flack for this. And so in the House even, you've seen, I think, some willingness to sort of go against the sort of ideological hardliners in the Republican Party and actually do something. But when the Democrats don't even stay in town to say, okay, well, we're going to really make this happen right now. This is something that's actually important. We're going to press on this. Then the pressure comes off, and it's harder to get something done. Something really bad happened in West Virginia this month. Hundreds of thousands of people were without drinking water, and at the moment, it's not really clear whether they're with it or without it. The governor of West Virginia gave a speech, or not really a speech. He did a press conference, and he said to reporters, media members who are covering this press conference, I don't really know. I can't say with 100% confidence that whether or not the water in West Virginia is safe to drink. So if you don't feel comfortable drinking or bathing or cooking with the water here, then use bottled water. And I thought that was kind of a startling thing to say, because either the water's safe or it's not. You don't know which. Saying, I guess use your best judgment. I mean, I don't really want Congress, I don't want red lights, traffic lights to tell me, use your best judgment at this intersection. I would like someone to tell me if I can go through the light or not. I guess that's in some ways, an infringement upon my freedom, but I would still like to have more order and less chaos in my life. I was really surprised to see someone at that level. Governors, they run for president sometimes. I don't know if Governor Thompson is going to be in that field or anything, but
probably not.
This just seemed like it was not really a primetime move.
Well, no, and Governor Tomlin is I think got one foot in the bucket at the plate right now. The way he's talking about this right now, he's facing a need to attempt to deal with this problem as it's happening and as it's ongoing. And he's facing one of the problems he's facing is that not much is known about this chemical that's leached into the water. It's sort of defied a lot of the public health community's ability to cope with it because they don't have a lot of information about the raw, crude version of this chemical that's used to wash coal during the processing of coal.
Turns the water green, which seems bad.
Makes it smell like licorice, which seems like I mean, I guess if you're a licorice fan, but. He said something to the effect that the discharge of chemicals or other contaminants into our water supply is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. But the thing is that it has been acceptable and has been tolerated for a long time. Listen to some of the legislative fixes he's talking about now implementing. The legislation he's proposing would allow the Department of Environmental Protection to implement an above-ground tank regulation program that will require operators to report the tank's location, their construction, and maintenance, and also require annual inspections and certifications, and allow the head of the environmental agency to order a plant to take corrective action when storing potentially harmful material. This is where they're starting. This is their starting point. It is like, I'm really interested in just knowing the location of all the poison that's in my state.
It's like, pay attention to the stuff that might be bad. That's going to be our
I've got an idea. How about we know where the bad chemicals are? Maybe we should pass a law that would allow us to know where they are. That is where they're starting on this. This is all no-brainer stuff that should have been in place decades ago.
But so the thing is, like, when you look at like major catastrophic failures like this that cause serious harm to the public. I mean, the one I have the most familiarity with is the financial crisis from 2008. The financial crisis, you have a lot of serious wrong occurring in the private sector. People doing bad, risky things that are predatory and mean and terrible. But you also have regulators just not taking care of business. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on mortgage lending. I mean, the standards there, it's very similar to what you're talking about there with dangerous chemicals. Like, okay, let's start with a regulation that says know where the bad stuff is and then do something about it if it goes wrong.
Right.
That's very true on mortgages. Okay, people have been lending for like centuries. It's not that hard. Ability to repay. I mean, the new Consumer Financial Protection Bureau just put out a new set of mortgage standards saying one of the fundamental principles of making a loan to somebody is making sure they have the ability to repay the loan.
Sure,
this is basic stuff. Regulators, it's not like regulators didn't know about this. And so when John Boehner comes out and says, look, when we have these types of chemical spills, I don't see why we need new regulations when people aren't even enforcing the ones we have on the books. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of intuitive plausibility to that.
There is, but there's a reason there. I mean, of course, we maybe don't need new regulation. I mean, don't let poison get in the water supply. That's a good regulation, But we also have laws that say, hey, don't murder another person, and people keep getting murdered. And I don't think that John Boehner is sitting around going, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about all the murder. We got a law. Why don't people respect it? Well, I mean, the reason this keeps happening is that while there is a regulation on the book, the regulators whose job it is to patrol this beat are coming up against the fact that they are underfunded, understaffed, undermined at every turn. You have abdication going on between state and federal government, and you got state and local officials running for office on, well, show Washington's regulators what we think about them. I think that they're all sort of geared toward getting the last bit of juice from what's in the ground in West Virginia and what West Virginia will permit them to do in their weird laissez-faire, cold juice, laissez-faire regulatory system.